All right, thank you so much for watching this Google Live session. If you're watching this after the fact, what we're going to do is we're going to be taking a look at Scratch and how you could use Scratch for a game engine. And so I've tried this once before, and this was years ago, so I'm going to try it again, making an Asteroids type game and just see what you have to do to make it. Now, I've got a list of some of the things that I'm going to do, so let me just show you what those are. I just got to present for those that are watching this live. And so here we go. Okay. So we're doing the Scratch Asteroids type game, and I've got an algorithm for you to kind of see what we're going to be taking a look at today. Scratch has this thing called when the game starts or when it starts, what do you do? And so we'll break that down. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to move. And by the way, I'm going to be mostly controlling the spaceship, and then I'm going to see if I have time to spawn little bullets when you fire, just to see how well we can get that working. So when the game starts, we want to set the position of our main ship to the center of the screen. It always needs to start at the center, so we make sure that happens. And then we're going to set some variables that will help us control the movement. And the interesting thing is we're going to even set some extra variables here. But for our ship, we want to know our ship's velocity, the rate at which we can turn, we're going to add a little friction to sort of slow down the ship while when we let go of, so basically what we want to do is when we start moving, we want it to move, but then when we let go of the button, we want it to sort of slow to a stop. So we're going to take a look at that. So we're going to set some variables, and then we're going to broadcast a message. And I'll show you, obviously, how to do all of this stuff. And the message is start game, and that's gonna, when we start the game, it's gonna let any other game objects like asteroids know they can start moving, appearing, whatever. So messaging is an important thing in Scratch that helps you sort of set things. So we'll do this in just a moment. And then, so you notice it begins with this, setting some stuff and then starting the game. So then what we want to do is what do we do with the ship when the game starts? We're going to go into a loop. It's a forever loop. As long as the game is running, we're going to be doing this loop. We're going to move forward by the amount that the velocity is. And then once we move, we're going to decrease the friction. As long as we're holding down the button, we'll keep increasing velocity. And so we'll adjust numbers as needed. And then keyboard control, we have left arrow, right arrow, up arrow, and space. So left is going to be turn left, right is going to turn right, up arrow, etc. So that's what we're going to do. So let's just go ahead and start with this first part of our algorithm, which is the game start. And even before we do that, we're going to set up Scratch. And we're going to do some setup here. So I've begun by logging in. I've created this new game, and I'm just going to call this Asteroids. And I could share that at some point, but right now we're just going to work on it. You begin with the little Scratch cat who's there. And, I'm also going to do one quick thing. I'm going to set a YouTube timer. So I want it quiet, but then I want it to go off and know when the timer has gone off so that I can stop at the right time. So 30-minute timer. I'm going to search here, and I think we'll try the bomb timer. And so it's going good. It's quiet for now. And then when that bomb goes off, we'll know it's time to wrap things up. Okay, so where was I? Scratch. Here we go. Okay, so in Scratch, you begin with a sprite. In this case, it's a cat, and it's just called Sprite 1. And the sprite is basically not only the image, but it's all of the code that goes with it. So this is more than just a sprite. Like if you're in Game Maker, you'd have a sprite and you'd have an object. Well, this does both. And we're just going to call it ship. Okay, we could call it player because that's what it's going to be. And since we're going to make it a ship, we should probably make it look like a ship. So I'm going to click on costumes. And I was actually going to use a tennis racket and ball. So I think that's what I'm going to go ahead and do for our ship. So let's see if we can find like a racket we can use. And so the first thing we want to do is we want to find a quote unquote costume. And this is what the cat is. If you want to use the cat, you're welcome to do so. Let's try racket. And we have a tennis racket. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything. I think there would be something under sports. Baseball, basketball, tennis ball. All right. Let's see. Can we import an image? Can we upload an image? Oh, there's a backdrop. We're going to do that in a moment. Let's see if we can do something like that. Choose a costume. Here we go. Upload costume. Okay, so we're going to have to go find a quick tennis racket. So I'm going to just do this tennis racket. And I'm going to go to an image search, and I am going to click on Tools, Usage Rights. I want one that's labeled for reuse. In other words, I can reuse this in my game. So there's a tennis racket. If we're going to have a space background, that's going to be hard to see. So if we see any others, oh, that would look good if it didn't have all that background with it. Yikes. I did not know I'd have such a hard time finding one. There's that, but it just looks kind of odd. We're going to use this one. There we go. Perfect. All right, 324 by 720. Let's just go ahead and click Save Image As. It's on Pixabay. Pixabay does this for free, so let's just call it Racket. I'm going to click Save. Saves it down here. I'm going to go back to Scratch. And now I'm going to upload, and it's going to be in downloads, Racket PNG, open. There it is. Let's see if we can resize this thing. Flip, flip. Let's zoom out, but we should be able to resize this. I'm hoping I can do that. Oh, there's where I could have changed the color of it. There's gotta, oh, here we go, size. Okay, let's try 50. It's a little bit smaller. And let's delete the cat and see what it looks like on the screen. It's a little bit on the big side, so we're going to keep reducing the size here. Let's do 25. That's pretty good. We'll just make that our ship. I know it's kind of odd. All right, so direction. Well, we're going to deal with direction a little bit later. So as you can see, this is like our sprite, our object. It's got everything you want. We can change its size down here. There it is. Now, if we're going to want other objects like asteroids, we would add them here by choosing more sprites. Okay, so we've got our ship. Let's change the backdrop. So I'm going to click on the backdrop, and I'm going to see if we can change the backdrop on here. Here we go. Okay, so we have this backdrop one. Do we have a choice? Okay. So this is sort of like dealing with rooms in Game Maker. So I'm going to set a backdrop I would like for my location. Space is what I'm aiming for. And oh, here we go. Perfect. That's going to be my backdrop. Awesome. All right. I'm happy with that. I'm going to leave it like it is. Hopefully that won't be too hard to play. Okay, so, and that's just space for our backdrop. Okay, we're back to the ship. Okay. So let's begin coding this now that we've got our stage, and we can always change the way the ship looks. You can change any sprites. We're not going to worry about that. All right, so we've got our name of our game, and what we're going to do now is I'm going to click on control, because we want to control stuff. Control, this is control of everything from the game to whatever. And notice the color coding here. There's control, but there's also events. This is what I want. I want events. But if you notice, look at the color when you're doing this. Now, when the green flag is clicked, that's basically we're starting the game. So when we start this game, as I said before, we're going to set the position to the center of the screen. Okay, so now anything while this ship is selected, and you see down here where my cursor is pointing, it says ship, it's blue, it's selected. So this is what we're going to be controlling. So when that's clicked, we want to click on motion, and we're going to just go to an X and Y position. Now, if we say go to 0, 0, let me show you what happens here. I'm going to drag it over here. I'm going to press start. Notice that just immediately moves us to the center of the screen. So that's good. Press play again. Okay, so we always want to start in the center. Okay, so we're not going to move until we tell it to move. And let's just go ahead and set the other variables we talked about. So I'm going to click on variables. And we can make a variable, we can set a variable, we can change a variable, we can show a variable or hide a variable. All right, so those are the options, and we can even make a list. So this would create a list of things. All right, we're going to start by looking at my notes. I'm going to set a velocity, and that's going to be the number of pixels we move. So I'm going to create a variable, and we're going to call it, oh, it's going to be for this sprite only. We're going to call it velocity. Speed and direction. Technically, it's more just speed, so we're going to do speed. Okay. Okay, so notice how I do these little, whenever I do these tutorials, I like to do a phrase that pays. So this is for those who are watching and are watching after the fact to just as proof that you watched it. I'm going to put on here, we change the variable velocity to speed. Okay, that's the first phrase that pays. So if you watch afterward, you're going to report back to me that this was the number one phrase that pays. Okay, so we're going to come back. So we're not actually going to use velocity. We're going to use speed. And the reason why is speed and direction, we're keeping them separate because our arrows are going to change the direction, and our left and right arrow will change direction to rotate it, and our forward arrow will adjust we're going to move in the direction that we are going. Okay, so let's go ahead and set speed to 0. So at the beginning of the game, we stop our movement. All right, we're not going to go anywhere. Now, where is the direction going to be set? Do I need to set the direction? No, we're going to do turn speed and friction. Turn speed and friction is also related to the ship, so we're just going to call it turn speed. So this is how we do it. We create a new variable. You do want to pay attention. Is it for all sprites or this sprite only? We want this ship to have its own speed. Asteroids will have their own speed. We don't want to confuse them. And just ignore cloud variable. This would be if we want to have a game, I suppose, that you could play across different players stored on a server. I don't know. I'm just guessing. And then we're going to go ahead. I'm just going to, now, let's say I want to set that other variable to, we have a couple options. I can just drag this over and drop it in, right? And we have turn speed there, so I have to change my variable to turn speed. And that sets that. Let me show you the other way. We're going to create another variable, which is friction. This could be for all, no, we're only going to do it for this sprite. And now, here's the other way we can set the speed. If we already have a block out here, we can right-click and duplicate the block. You're going to see that I do duplicate a lot. And now I'm going to do friction. Now, the idea here is the speed is actually, you know what? We could set the speed. Now we're gonna set it to 0. Okay, never mind. Don't worry about that. All right, friction. We're going to give friction 0.1. And to make it a little easier for you to see, 0.1. There's a little point in there. So what's going to happen is we're always going to slow things down. Now, if you don't want to see these variables, you can hide them at the beginning. Now, we're not going to, because I actually want to see how this changes as we go. So we got the first thing here. The last thing we want to do is broadcast a message. And I think that's under control. Or maybe, oh, no, it's events. Yeah, it's something that happens. So we're going to broadcast a message, and we're going to set that message to start. Okay, we're just going to call it start. Start will start the game. So now the question is, when the ship receives start, Then what are we going to do? I said we're going to do a forever loop. Okay, so let's do forever is control. And there it is, forever. It's also known as an infinite loop. All right, it's for forever loop. So we're just, whatever we stick inside of here is just going to repeat over and over and over again. What are we going to repeat? We're going to move velocity steps. So that's motion, move. And how many steps? Velocity. Okay, instead of 10, although let's just see what happens if we just do it this way. Okay, do you notice which direction it went? It went to the right, but the tennis racket is not pointing in that direction. Okay, I'm going to stop that. Okay, so I'm going to start by adding the variable, and that is speed. So we're going to move speed steps. So now when we run it, it doesn't go anywhere. Notice how this is highlighted. Okay, the block that's running is highlighted in yellow, which brings me to my next phrase, that pays. And that is the block that is highlighted in yellow is the one that's running. Now, this is going to become important possibly later on. And the reason why that's important is it shows you like what's happening. So when I click it, I'm going to stop it for a moment. Notice how that's not there. I'm going to click it. And I don't know if you saw it, but for a brief second, that thing highlighted. And then it went straight to here. I'm going to go ahead and stop that. Now, before I go any further, I'm just going to check to say, ooh, project could not be saved. Let's try it again. Hopefully it'll be saved now. All right, let me just see if I have any messages in here. No, Carson, you're here. Don't see any message. If you do, just you have a question for me, feel free to just add a message to the chat. All right, we're going to go back here. All right, so at this point, we now have everything sort of in place. We're pretty much ready to go. But there was another forever loop thing we were going to do. Go ahead and hide that. We're going to move velocity steps. Oh, we're going to decrease by friction. What are we going to decrease by friction? That is going to be our speed. Now, ooh, I just realized this is going to be interesting. So we're going to change speed by, now we want to basically go, we want to reduce speed until we get to 0, but then we don't want to change it anymore. Okay, so that's kind of important. We're going to change speed. Now we need to take the variable called speed, and we're going to subtract. Oh, so we're going to subtract speed by friction. Okay, so we want friction, but how do you subtract? Well, for that we need to go to green, which is the operators, and we have this right here. Okay, so this is some variable minus something else. Now, we're going to subtract friction from speed. But interestingly enough, if we just type in here 0 minus friction, that becomes negative friction. However, we need to have a little bit of control. If speed ever, well, let's just see what happens when we don't. Let's just go ahead and run it. Notice how it's moving to the left now. Right? It's because speed started going, oh, look at that, negative 11. Okay, so we had a little problem there, right? Because we want it to stop at 0. So we're just going to do a little control. So we're going to say if then. So what are we checking for? We're going to say if speed is less than 0, we're going to set it to 0. So for that, we need some operators. Here's the less than. If. We need that speed again. So I'm going to click, try to duplicate speed. Yeah, if speed is less than 0, we're going to set speed to 0. I'm going to duplicate. Oops, that was more than I needed. I'm going to just get rid of that by dragging it off to the side. I'm going to set speed to 0. So now we're going to run it. All right, there we go. Okay, so now we can't ever go less than 0. Now, I'm going to add a little comment here because I want to show you this. This is something a lot of developers do, a lot of programmers do, is they add comments. And so I'm going to add a comment. I'm just going to put don't set, I'll just put speed cannot go below 0. And so now I have a little comment attached to that explaining what I'm doing there. And I think that's a really important feature to have in your code because it will help explain to others, including yourself, what it is you're doing. So comments, add comments by the use of a right click. This is phrase number 3. So that's a great one. So you want to, this is a great handy, these are not just phrases that pay. These are like handy tips. This is like stuff that some good programmers are going to do because it's really helpful if someone else is looking. By the way, you can share this and you can see what other people did on their code, which is kind of handy. So if someone else is looking to see, well, how did he do that? Well, there it is. I've got a little comment. So I'm going to try to add comments wherever possible. And so now we're going to do some control. All right, so now we're ready to move on to the next step. I'm going to go ahead and hide that. I'm going to talk keyboard control, and I can also hide that for now. So when the left arrow is pressed, we're going to like change our direction. So we're going to change our direction by going negative turn speed. So it would rotate it to the left. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to click on events, which is when a key is pressed. Now, interesting, I don't have a always being pressed. I want to be able to hold it down, and so I'm going to deal with that. Once I get things working, I'll see if I can do a thing where it's just like always turning. But we're going to start with this. So this is great if you want to do things like turn to the left, turn to the right. This is keyboard control when it's pressed. So we're going to do left arrow, I think is what I said I was going to do. And then we're going to go to motion because we're going to be turning it. So you see that there's turn degrees. Here's point and direction. Okay. So look at all the different options you have. You can move. That's going to be move 10 steps forward in the direction you're facing, right? So that's good for, like the up arrow. We can turn to the left. We can turn to the right. Although I don't know if that changes our direction. So I'm not entirely sure. So I think I'm going to rather do a point in direction. Now we're going to need to get direction, so we need to find that. There it is. Oh, look at this. So we can look at the position on the X, on the Y, and its direction. So we're going to point in direction. Is there a way we can set direction? Set rotation style. Oh, I don't know what that is. Left, right. Don't rotate. All around. Ooh. Okay, we're going to come back to that. I'm actually going to drag this up here because I'm not entirely sure how we want to do that. I think it's going to be all around. Actually, let's start by not doing that. Drag that off. Put that here, but I'm going to leave this sort of nearby. Okay. Point in direction. So we're going to take direction, but we're going to subtract it by turn angle. We need that operator. So there's that minus. Point in direction. Direction. Oops. Direction minus, and that's turn variable, turn speed. Let's just try this out. No, it's not doing it. Okay. Now I got to remember what I did. Point in direction. There must be a point in, oh, there's point in direction. Direction minus turn speed. Maybe I need to set direction. Can I set direction? Okay. Point in direction. Oh, whoa, what happened? Look at that. Do you see that? It turned. It rotated. Did I ever set turn? Turn speed. Oh, here's my problem. I set turn speed to 0. Okay, so big mistake. Let's run it now. There we go. Okay, it turns to the left, does not turn to the right. Okay, great. So don't forget when you set your variables to give it a value sometimes other than 0. So we're just going to say, yeah, it won't be the phrase to paste, but if you want to like identify one mistake I made, there you go. I'd set turn speed to 0, and that of course wasn't going to work. So now we want to do the opposite. We want to do a right arrow, and this time we'll point in direction plus turn speed. I'm wondering if I can just change the directions on here. No. Can I double click? Nope. Okay, so that's kind of annoying. I wish I could just go in there and change that. So we did a minus. We're going to do a plus. And then everything else is going to be the same. So what I'm going to do is just right click here and duplicate all of that. And get that out of the way. Put that down there. So now when the right arrow key is pressed, we're going to point in direction. And then we're going to add turn speed to it. So let's see if we can turn right now. Turn right, turn left. Great. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we have this forever. We're going to change speed. We're going to move speed steps. So we've already set that here. So we're technically moving. We're just going at 0 pixels every loop. So what we're going to do is we're going to increase speed whenever we do the up arrow. So I'm going to click on events. I'm going to grab another when a key is pressed. I'm going to do that the up arrow. And now we're going to increase speed. So I'm going to comment that. I'm going to add a comment. Increase speed. It's not space, it's up arrow. There we go. I don't know how I changed that, but I did. So we're going to want operators. Change. Oh no, yeah, we are. Yes, we're going to need a plus sign. We're going to add. I would multiply, but if it starts at 0, you don't want to multiply anything by 0. That's not going to be good. And we're going to click on variables. So now we're going to change speed by, now I'm going to hide that little dude there. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to change speed, and we're going to just put, I'm just going to keep speed there. We're just going to add a plus. And this is going to be, did I ever set the velocity? Let me see if I did. Oh no, I set speed. Oh, okay, yeah. I forgot I did that. I'm gonna put in here 0.2. And then we're gonna try to run it. Okay, we do have a problem. It's probably not enough. What if we change it by 2? Does it get any faster? See, do you see how it just keeps going back down to 0? Change speed by negative friction. Oh, here's the problem. The up arrow is being pressed. And so I have to keep pressing it. And as soon as I let go, it subtracts that friction. Let me try a bigger number just so we can try it. I can hold it down. Maybe I could set speed to 1. And instead of adding, I could multiply it. Let's see what happens. Yeah, you notice we had that, we're adding the friction. So what if we multiply it? Gotta go to operators, and this may not work. I'm gonna drag that out. Oh, that's even worse. Speed is not changing. So that's not good. Okay, I might have to do this slightly different. Now, I'll give you a couple options. I'll go ahead and just bring this back, run it, and then you could decide if that's fast enough. But here's the problem. It's not moving in the direction it's pointing, and that is a problem. So what we're going to have to do is change this ship. Now, I'm curious about the direction, if I can change that. See, that's the direction it's pointing at and wants to go. So I'm going to have to go to costume, and I think I just have to rotate it in here. Is that an undo? Yeah, it's just an undo. Is there a way I can rotate this thing? Convert to vector. Well, I could aim. Let's just do one quick thing. Let's stop this game. Go back to the code. I'm going to click enter. Not only am I going to go to the center, but I'm going to set the direction. Point and direction. Let's run it. 90. And if I go forward, okay, so point and direction 90. Now what if I change this to 180 when I run it? Yeah, it doesn't matter which way I point it. The pointing doesn't change anything. It just resets it to its current spot. So I'm going to need to actually edit this ship, and when I edit it, I need to just rotate it so the handle of the racket is pointing to the right. So how you do that in here, I'm not entirely sure. Go to costumes. I don't see much stuff here. There is the flip horizontal, flip vertical. Yeah, that doesn't do me any good. I don't see a rotate in here. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I can. I thought I just saw something there. Ah, here we go. I think we got something here. Oops. Okay, whatever. Let's make it a little smaller. Ah, here it is. Okay, I got it. Oh, that was the bomb indicating it's been 30 minutes. Okay, so let's just see if this works any better. Ah, look at that. Okay, so I can rotate around. Interesting. See, it kind of jumped to the left a little bit there. Okay, that's better. I'm kind of low on time, so let me just recap what I've done so far. But let's try one other thing. I'm going to do that rotation style. Left, right. What can I do? Yeah, it's not rotating. What if I do all around? And I run it. That looks weird. It should be rotating around the center. I'm not a fan of that. So why is it doing that? It seems like the center is right about this part of the racket. So, oh, there's the center. I don't know. Is the center about here? Let's try it now. Oh yeah, look at that. It does have a little bit of an odd little thing there. So we've learned a lot of stuff today. So I think it's time to just recap what we've done, and then I'm going to pick this up next time. So we went over a lot. We went over how to change the backdrop to the stage. The stage is like a room. That's going to be one of my phrases. Where are we on? We're number 4. The stage is like a room. All right, that's our 4th phrase that pays. Stage is like a room. We're gonna have one more in the end. So you notice there's a lot with, whoa, there's a lot of setup here. So I don't think I need to do that set rotation style because that's what we were doing. So I think that was not necessary. So I'm gonna pull that off and see if it still behaves about normal. Go ahead and run it. Yeah, that's probably fine. So this is probably like the default setting. I'm gonna get rid of that by just dragging it off the screen. So the green flag is what starts everything, but technically when we start the flag, we want to do things like reset its position. So that's where that go to X0, Y0, and then point in direction 90, which means we want to point in the direction that, to the right. Now we could change that. We could set it to -90 if we want. Let's try running it now. And interesting. We could try 0. Oh, 0's up. Okay, so there's something new. Direction of 0 is up. That's going to be my last phrase. There we go. That's our final phrase that pays. The direction of 0 is up. And of course, the graphic might not be facing up, but if I start going forward, up is definitely going up there. Okay, so that's the point in direction. It's always good to reset it so that we always begin in the same location. We are setting our variables, so I can add a comment here. Set some ship variables. Okay. And comments are just there for our own benefit. I'm going to go ahead and hit stop. And then we broadcast start. So that's a message. So we chose what the message was. And then once we start, we can, what this does, by the way, I didn't explain why I did this. One, I don't want to start moving and shooting and any of that stuff till everything else has been set, like its position, its direction, all that. But also, this is something that all other objects can receive. So I can have an asteroid out here, and when it says start, that asteroid could like appear and start moving in a random direction. And so that's something I want to hit and cover the next time. That idea of broadcast. This is a very powerful thing because you could do things like, well, what happens if the ship gets hit? All right, we could broadcast a message, and then that could reset things if we wanted to or not. End a game. We could have an end game thing. Like when the game ends, we could have a message that when basically we change the backdrop when the game is over, and we like hide objects, and there's just a lot of things we can organize and do um, with a message that we broadcast. So that's why we did that. We wanted to set this stuff up first, then we wanted to start going. So then what we did is when we start the game, I'm going to just close that for now. When we start the game, we just go into this loop that just loops forever. This is also known as the game loop. And in the game loop, we're going to move however many, whatever our speed is, we're going to move that in that direction. And this just means moving the direction we're facing. So that's kind of handy. And then we're going to change speeds. We're going to subtract friction by whatever we set friction to, which was 0.1. And so that's always going to like slow it down. And then if the speed is, less than 50, I meant that to be if it's less than 0, set it to 0. Okay, well that's a good thing to know. I don't know how that happened. But yeah, so, and by the way, the other thing too is you can see all these color codes here to figure this out. So it's kind of nice because you could recreate this stuff. You just have to look for the colors and the shapes and then the little values and stuff to help out. So that basically we're always moving at speed, but we're always applying some friction to speed. If it ever goes below zero, we just stop it so we can't ever have a negative, so it can't go backwards basically. And then we handled left arrow. We just take our direction and subtract the turn speed to go left, to turn left. To go right, we just add our turn speed. So it's just like the opposite, right? Those are two opposites. And then on the up arrow, we're going to add 5 to the speed. Now, I'm going to do for next time. So next time, what we're going to try to do, I'm going to go ahead and hide this. And I'm going to put next steps. I would like to adjust the speed mechanic. You know, it's a little bit smoother and stuff with the friction and all that. Definitely add asteroids. Try collisions. Add shooting mechanics. All right. I think after that, maybe a little heads-up display, HUD. All right. So there's a lot we're going to be doing over the course of the next couple of weeks. I'm going to try to once a week try to do one of these tutorials. I really like where we're going with this, so I'd like to keep going. So I'm just going to, at this point, looks like I saved my project. Good, good. So that means I can always come back to this. Let me just check, see if we still have our vest. Okay, our guest is still here, Carson. All right, so at this point, I think we're pretty much done. So I'm going to stop the recording that I'm going to post. So if you got any questions, feel free to add them to the Google Classroom. And you saw what the phrase that pays were. I had 5 in all, and you're welcome to try your own hand with your own ship. You can even try to recreate what you saw there. Although I recommend you try different ships and things like that. So thank you so much for watching. So make sure you keep checking that Google Classroom. I can't say Google well today. Check the Google Classroom to make sure you know when I'm broadcasting live, to see if there's any other presentations you would like to take a look at. So send me any questions you got, and thank you so much for watching. So stay tuned for more.